It's strange how fear changes sound. Every creak becomes a warning. Every breath feels borrowed. And every second lasts forever. Aisha Hussain had never believed in monsters. But that night, she met one. A voice in the dark. A man she couldn't see. And a promise that chilled her to her bones. Bring the folder if you want to see your mother again. She didn't scream. Didn't move. Just stood there, holding the flash drive tight in her shaking hand. As the shadow at the door slowly disappeared back into the hallway, the moment the lock clicked, Aisha ran to the window, pulled the curtain back. But the street below was empty. The car was gone. Only silence. And the sound of rain. She dialed her mother's number again. Straight to voicemail. Then she called the police, again. They arrived half an hour later. Searched the apartment. Asked a few questions. And left. No sign of forced entry. No evidence. Just a missing persons report. Number 4983 in a system that had long stopped caring. But Aisha couldn't wait. She opened her laptop, plugged in the flash drive. The one she had taken from Mr. Conrad's computer the night she found the plagiarism. The drive's name read, Student Archive. Inside were folders, each labeled with a student's name. But when she opened them, there weren't essays. There were reports, private information, grades, addresses, photos taken from surveillance cameras, even psychological profiles labeled behavioral flag. Then one folder caught her eye. Her own name, Hussain_SHA. She opened it and froze. Inside was a document titled Case File 01147. Observation continued. The text read, Subject displays potential for influence. Recommend escalation. Parent monitored for compliance. And at the bottom, a signature. Daniel Knox. Her blood ran cold. This wasn't just about a teacher failing a student. This was something organized, systematic. Someone had been collecting data on students like her. Those who stood out. Those who resisted. Those who wore symbols that didn't fit their version of order. She printed everything, stuffed the papers in her backpack, and went straight to the one place that might still listen. The Metro Tribune, a local newspaper known for exposing corruption, now barely surviving in the digital age. She walked in drenched in rain. An older man behind the counter looked up from his screen. James Holloway, senior reporter, weary eyes, but sharp. She told him everything, from the failing grade to the threats. The missing mother, the drive, the messages. He listened quietly, then leaned back and said, Kid, if what you're saying is true, you've stumbled onto something big. But if it's real, they're already watching you. He copied the files, promised to look into Knox's connections, and told her to go home, stay out of sight. That night, she did. She locked every door, shut every window, and stayed awake listening for footsteps that never came. But across town, at the Tribune office, James Holloway stared at the drive plugged into his computer. He opened one of the restricted folders hidden inside the archive. His face went pale. There were classified documents, emails from district officials, local law enforcement, even federal education programs, lines of text referring to compliance partnerships, and something called Project QuietMind. Then, his monitor glitched. The cursor began to move on its own. Files deleted one by one. Then the lights flickered, and a message appeared on his screen. We warned her. You shouldn't have looked. Holloway unplugged the drive, heart pounding. He grabbed his phone. Called Aisha. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. A minute later, his phone buzzed. An unknown number. He answered, and a voice whispered, She's gone. The line went dead. Meanwhile, back in her apartment, Aisha's phone lit up with a new message. A location pin. An address on the outskirts of town. No name. No words. Just the coordinates. She hesitated, then packed her bag, took her mother's scarf, and left. The roads were empty. The rain heavier now. The streetlights fading one by one as she drove. When she reached the address, it was a closed-down testing facility. Barbed wire. Broken signs. Lincoln County Learning Development Center. A place that had been shut for years. Her flashlight cut through the dark hallway inside. The walls were lined with old computers. Papers scattered across the floor. The smell of dust and rot thick in the air. But one room at the end still had power. The light inside flickered faintly. She stepped closer and saw a computer running. On the screen, a live camera feed. Her mother, sitting in a chair, blindfolded, hands tied, breathing, but alive. Aisha's heart stopped. She stepped closer, Then a sound. A click. The door behind her shut. The lights cut out. The screen turned black. Then, that voice again, echoing through hidden speakers. You had a chance to stay silent, Aisha. But now, you're part of the lesson. A faint red light blinked from the ceiling. A camera. Recording. She screamed into the darkness. Where's my mother? The voice replied. Right where she's supposed to be. And then, the computer turned back on, showing not just one feed, but dozens. Students. Different schools. All wearing the same terrified expression. And in the corner of the screen, a logo faded in. The same one from the files. Project QuietMind, Department of Educational Compliance. Aisha fell to her knees, realizing the truth. Mr. Conrad wasn't the beginning. He was just the first pawn. And this was the system. Then a final message appeared on the screen. Welcome to Phase 2. The screen flickered, and the camera light on the wall turned, pointing directly at her face. There's a kind of silence that doesn't comfort. It crushes. It presses down on your lungs until even breathing feels like betrayal. That's the silence Aisha Hussain woke up to. Cold concrete floor. Fluorescent light flickering above her. A faint hum. Electricity running through the walls. And on the wall across from her, a single camera. Her wrists were bound with zip ties. Her backpack gone. Her phone missing. The last thing she remembered. The testing facility. Her mother's face on the monitor. And that voice. Welcome to Phase 2. Now she was inside it. Inside Project QuietMind. A speaker crackled to life overhead. The same voice. Calm, precise, practiced. You've been selected for observation, Aisha. Don't resist. Don't speak. Just listen. She didn't answer. But inside, her thoughts were spinning. Every instinct told her this was bigger than one school. Bigger than one teacher. It was a system, and she'd stepped into its heart. A steel door opened. A tall man stepped inside, wearing a white lab coat. His face was hidden behind a clear visor. He carried a clipboard, his movements robotic. He didn't speak to her directly, just placed sensors on her temples, wrists, and neck. Then turned on a machine behind him. A black console with faint blue lights pulsing rhythmically. He pressed a button. A low tone filled the room. Steady, repetitive, almost hypnotic. Aisha tried to stay awake, but the sound crept through her veins, softening her will, fogging her thoughts. She remembered her mother's voice. The warmth, the strength. That's what kept her anchored. Then, another sound. Footsteps. Heels clicking against the floor. A second figure entered. A woman this time. Sharp posture. Dark suit. Cold eyes behind thin glasses. I'm Dr. Evelyn Reed, she said. You've caused quite the mess, Aisha. But don't worry. We clean up messes here. Aisha's voice cracked. Where's my mother? Dr. Reed tilted her head slightly, like she was studying a specimen. Your mother is safe for now. Cooperation ensures continuation. Aisha glared at her. You're using students. Tracking them. You're sick. Dr. Reed smiled faintly. We're preparing them. The world rewards compliance, not chaos. She turned to the technician. Begin cognitive mapping. The machine whirred louder. Images flashed on the monitor. Classrooms, hallways, faces of students. And then, Aisha's own memories. Projected like film. Her childhood. Her mother teaching her to pray. Her laughter. Her pain. Tears streamed down her face as she realized what was happening. They weren't just controlling students. They were taking their minds, their identities. Suddenly, the screen flickered. The technician frowned. Ma'am, we have an interference. The screen glitched again, and a new image appeared. A man's face. Old. Tired. It was James Holloway, the reporter. Dr. Reed's calm expression vanished. Who patched this feed? Aisha's heart pounded. Holloway's voice came through the speaker. Aisha, if you can hear this, I found the files. QuietMind isn't about education. It's about social control. They're rewriting student behavior data into predictive models. You're not their subject, you're their proof. Dr. Reed slammed her hand against the console. Cut the transmission, but the voice kept coming. They've been monitoring schools across 3 states. Hundreds of kids flagged as non-compliant. Aisha. The screen cut to static. Sparks flew from the console. The room plunged into darkness. Alarms blared. The technician shouted something, but Aisha was already moving. The restraints melted slightly under the surge of heat from the malfunctioning machine. She tore free, grabbed the broken metal strap, and swung, crashing it into the man's arm. He fell. She bolted for the door. The hall outside was lined with identical doors, each with a nameplate, each with a camera feed above it, each with someone inside. Other students. Monitored. Sedated. Aisha ran. Sirens screamed overhead. The red lights painted the hallway like blood. Every door she passed showed a name. Amira, Tyrell, Chun, Sophia. All students she recognized from her district. All missing in the last few months. Then, a voice behind her. Dr. Reed. You can't hide, Aisha. You're already part of the system. Aisha ducked into a maintenance corridor, her heart slamming against her ribs. She found a vent panel, kicked it open, crawled inside. The air was cold and metallic. Her hands trembled, her breaths loud in the narrow space. She crawled until she reached a grate that looked into another room. Inside, servers. Hundreds of them, stacked floor to ceiling, lights blinking like eyes in the dark. And in the center of the room, a glass chamber. Inside it, her mother. Wires connected to her head, pulses of light running down tubes into the machines. Alive, but trapped. Aisha covered her mouth to stop from screaming. She whispered to herself, "Mama, I'm here. I'm coming." Then she saw something else. Another figure standing near the glass. A man in a suit. Not a scientist. Not a guard. It was Daniel Knox. He turned toward the servers, pressed a button on his tablet, and spoke quietly. Phase 3 begins tonight. Reed thinks she's running this project, but she's just data. Same as the rest of them. Aisha froze. Knox wasn't a pawn either. He was orchestrating it. She recorded everything on the technician's phone she'd grabbed, then crawled back through the vent toward an emergency exit. But as she reached the door, the lights above her flashed bright white. A mechanical voice echoed through the hall. Unauthorized subject detected. Initiating containment. She pushed the exit, locked. Behind her, boots thundered down the corridor. Armed guards. Dozens of them. She turned the other way, sprinted down a side stairwell. Found herself in a tunnel leading outside. Faint moonlight at the far end. She ran toward it, every breath a prayer. She was almost there, when her phone buzzed again. A message. A single sentence. If you step outside, she dies. She stopped. Her knees buckled. Tears blurred her vision. The tunnel light flickered, and at the other end, silhouetted by the moon, stood Daniel Knox. Calm. Smiling. Holding her mother's scarf in his hand. "You want to save her, Aisha?" he said. "Then come back. There's something you need to see." She looked past him and saw the faint outline of a black van pulling up behind him. Men in suits. Government plates. And on the van's door, the emblem she'd seen on every file. Project QuietMind. The guards closed in from behind. Her only way out was forward, toward him. And as she stepped into the light, her mother's voice echoed faintly from Knox's earpiece. Muffled but desperate. "Aisha, don't trust them." Knox smiled wider. Too late. They built the system to control voices like hers. To erase them. To rewrite truth until only silence remained. But they made one mistake. They taught Aisha Hussain how to fight back. The cold night air hit her face as she stepped toward the tunnel's exit. The men in suits watched silently. And standing between her and freedom was Daniel Knox. Calm, confident, holding her mother's scarf like a trophy. Aisha's heart raced. Behind her, armed guards blocked every escape. Ahead, the man who'd orchestrated everything smiled like a man delivering bad news. "You should have stayed a student, Aisha," he said softly. "The world doesn't reward rebellion. It corrects it." She glared at him. "You took my mother. You turned schools into prisons. What did you get out of it?" Knox tilted his head. "Order. Predictability. We built a system where the next generation behaves as designed. No faith. No resistance. No noise." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "And you were the noise." Her eyes flickered to the van behind him. Through the tinted window, she saw movement. Her mother, blindfolded, bound, alive. Knox noticed her glance and smiled. "Bring me the drive," he said. "Do that, and she goes free." Aisha hesitated. She still had the technician's phone in her pocket, and on it, the video she'd recorded, Knox's confession, the lab, the students. Proof of everything. She could hand it over and save her mother, or keep it and risk losing her forever. Her fingers trembled around the device. Knox extended his hand. "Choose wisely, Aisha." And that's when she remembered something her mother always said. "The truth isn't what saves you. It's what saves others after you." A faint smile touched her lips. She stepped forward, but instead of handing him the phone, she tossed it past him into the van. It hit the metal floor and shattered. Knox's smirk vanished. "What did you just do?" Aisha whispered. "Sent the truth where it belongs." Before he could react, a loud buzzing erupted from the tunnel's ceiling. Every phone, every earpiece, every device within range lit up. The technician's phone, before it shattered, had been set to live upload. The footage had already streamed to cloud storage. And seconds later, the entire feed began broadcasting online. Knox's voice, Dr. Reed's experiments, the facility, everything. His calm turned to panic. He shouted at his men, "Kill the feed. Now." But it was too late. Somewhere across town, James Holloway was already on a live stream, his voice breaking through the chaos. "This is real footage from inside Project QuietMind. Aisha Hussain exposed a system that's been monitoring and conditioning students across the state. These files confirm a network of educators and officials complicit in psychological manipulation." The broadcast went viral within minutes. News alerts, protests, emergency calls from government lines. The system that had built its power on secrecy was unraveling in real time. Knox's guards froze, unsure who to obey. Aisha seized the moment, rushed toward the van, wrenched the door open, and found her mother inside. Fatima's eyes filled with tears as she saw her daughter. "Aisha, you shouldn't have come." Aisha cut the ropes binding her wrists. "I wasn't leaving without you." They ran. Knox shouted behind them, but his voice was drowned by the sound of helicopters approaching overhead. Media, police, federal investigators. The truth had drawn them all. Aisha and her mother burst through the gate. Rain pouring down, sirens wailing in the distance. They didn't stop running until they reached the road. For the first time in weeks, Aisha felt the night air without fear. They collapsed by the roadside, breathing hard. Her mother wrapped her arms around her, whispering, "I told you. The truth saves." But behind them, the facility was in chaos. Dr. Reed was led away in handcuffs, her composure cracked. Knox tried to flee, but a swarm of cameras caught him before he reached the woods. His final words, caught on national television. "You don't understand. We were protecting them." The crowd's silence was his only answer. Months later, the headlines read, "Project QuietMind exposed. Dozens of officials arrested in student surveillance scandal. Whistleblower Aisha Hussain speaks out." The world finally knew. Her courage had burned through the lies. She stood at a press conference, dressed in white, her hijab glowing under the bright lights. Her voice steady, her message simple. They wanted to control what we learn, but they forgot. Truth is the one lesson you can't erase. The room erupted in applause. Reporters shouted questions, but Aisha just smiled, humble, tired, free. Afterward, she walked outside into the cool evening air. Her mother waited by the car, proud and quiet. The world felt lighter, hopeful, but peace has a strange way of testing you one last time. As they drove home, the radio crackled, static, then a faint distorted voice. It wasn't a station. It was a transmission. "This is Director Hale. Containment failed. Initiate the secondary protocol. Transfer all QuietMind backups to the satellite hub." Aisha froze. She turned up the volume. The voice continued. "The project doesn't die here. It evolves." Her mother glanced at her. "What is it?" Aisha whispered. "They're still out there." Then her phone buzzed. A notification. An email from an unknown sender. No subject line. Just an attachment. The file name read, QuietMind_Resurgence.mp4. She opened it slowly. The screen filled with static. Then cleared. Footage of a classroom. Newer. Brighter. Children sitting quietly, staring at digital boards that blinked the same message in rhythm. "Obedience is peace." Her hand tightened around the phone. The final frame appeared. A timestamp. Next year. A new school district. A new city. Then, words appeared across the screen. Phase 4, Global Pilot. Her mother whispered, "What does it mean?" Aisha stared out the window at the horizon. The sun was rising, its light cutting through the fog. She exhaled deeply, her voice calm, unbroken. "It means, this isn't over." The screen faded to black, and for a moment, only the sound of her heartbeat remained. Then, one last line appeared. "Every lesson begins again." Share your thoughts in the comments section. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more contents like this.